Yeah, so hi, my name's Matthew Wise. I'm solution architect at a company called Umbraco Digital, and today I'm going to talk about service workers, what they are, and why you might want to use them. And so yeah, let's get into it really. I'm going to try and stop looking at that TV because it's here. So what is a service worker? Service worker is a network proxy that runs in JavaScript. So it allows you to interrupt any network traffic from one site to the other that you want to do, and then allows you to manipulate it. It's progressive, so that if a browser doesn't support it, it has no effect. It doesn't do the nice things you're trying to do, but the site still works. It's only available on secure connections, and actually runs in the background. It has no access to the DOM, and you use a messaging system to talk between the DOM and the service worker and so forth. It's the backbone of a progressive web app. So without this, you can't do offline and get those progressive features. So one of the few of the reasons, like I said, first reason, main reason is caching and offline use, which allows you to have really fast response times or not care about the internet connection of your users anymore because they can store it like an app. Is that better?
Better.
Yeah. Cool. You can also do push notifications with limiting success based on browser support, such as iOS doesn't give you notifications, but Android does, so you can have nice push notifications for your PWA. Image format, so with image processor, for example, you can detect if the browser supports WebP and use the image processor WebP plugin to serve all your images in WebP format without having to use the picture element to do that. Again, saving your user bandwidth and load times for your certain site. You can do it with A/B testing, so if you want to change an image out or make an AJAX request based on certain things that the user have done, you can detect all that and change the network request you would have made otherwise. And then you can sync data in the background. So on Android in particular, if they've installed the app from their browser onto their home screen, you can be syncing data just like a normal app can, of giving you massive updates. So it's a real benefit. So when you first load the page, this is the process flow of how a service worker gets going. So firstly, it just installs itself, then becomes active, and then it waits for a request, a message, something to do, and then based on your code, it will either do something or it'll sit there doing nothing. So speaking of code, let's do that. See if I can widen this. Yeah, so this bit of JavaScript here literally just checks to see if the browser supports service workers. You could do an additional check for HTTPS secure and then load it or not, but let's face it, your site should be able HTTPS, so you shouldn't need to check it. So this literally loads this JavaScript file, which has all of the service worker code in it. Based on where that service worker file sits in your site, determines its scope, or you can specify its scope as well. So within here, I could specify, I can remember the syntax, it's something like, and then I could just do Umbraco, and then it would only work in the Umbraco scope, or spelled horribly wrong, so it's not in the Umbraco scope. But yeah, so you can scope them down, but if we have one at the root and one scoped in the directory below, they both will be running until one of them takes over. So just be aware of that if you've got multiple in the site. So in that file, I'm using a thing called Workbox by Google here. And what it does, it just wraps all the service worker JavaScript, makes it a little bit easier, lets you use regexes instead of having to write your own regexes and solve them and resolve on how you want to do them. So let's just go through this file really quickly. So here I'm just saying, get me the home page, and this stale while revalidate will go to the cache in the browser's cache API. Do you have this? If it does, it will return the cache. Then it will call the network and update its cache for the next time you request it. So you get instant responses, but you're still getting a fairly recent version of that page. I'll just come down, there's some other ones and I'll go through those, but you can do cache only, network only. So if you've got rules that need to be network only, you can specify those and break them out. So in this case, we're just going to cache the home page, we're assuming we have more. So this plugin with Workbox, you'd have to write how you want to handle your cache ages. This, you can see, it's just we're allowing 60 entries in this particular cache file, excuse me, and how long we want to cache it for. And then down here, we're now starting to register images. And also we want to cache our media, because media doesn't really change that much. I spent a lot of time working out if I could exclude media when I'm in the back office, and then realized when you change an image, it gives it a new URL and you don't have to worry about it. So that was good. So again, we're just skipping out app plugins and Umbraco here, and the same strategy. Again, for font style sheets here, and then this is the actual web font one, where you see it's just cache. So if it's in the cache, get it. If it's not, go to the network, but don't be updating it because it's probably not going to change. So after doing all of that, we can have a look at what happens on the network and the results for your site. So this is a simulated slow 3G for the Umbraco Start Kit. You can see it takes around 25 seconds to load, 900-ish kilobytes to transfer data, and the DOM's loading about 7 seconds. And then if we add the service worker in, which is that tiny little bit after the red line and the massive image load, that's just the service worker instantiating itself and getting itself ready for the network requests. And you can see it's barely made a difference to transfers, load times, anything. You could almost say that's just my network been flaky. So moving on, okay, that's in the wrong place, but fine. Where's that gone? Oh. There we go. Comparison table moved. So on a repeat request, on a normal site, this is what you would get. You would still have a 2-second, 3-second load time because you had to request the page on the network. But everything else is in the memory cache or disk cache as it would be normally. Whereas with a service worker, we've cached that page as well, meaning that we can respond with 0 bytes transferred and under 192 milliseconds versus a 2.5-second page load previously. I'm now going to scroll back through my slides to the slide that does the comparison table. So as you can see here, we have first requests are about the same, repeat requests coming down, but they're nowhere near the speed of with a service worker in there caching that page. So this is when I was learning a lot and still learning about him. I've learned more doing this talk than I thought I would. Turns out there's always more to learn. So these are really good resources. For example, the Pokédex org is just a Pokédex, but the whole thing loads the entire Pokédex into your browser's IndexedDB and cache resources. And there's a whole blog around it. It's used as a kind of a reference point from quite a while ago, as you can see, 2015. So yeah, and thanks to Mike, because that's actually mostly his code, I'm not going to lie. Yeah, so this has gone way quicker than I thought it would, but has anyone got any questions? Yeah, shall I? I'll do it, don't worry.
Could you clarify the difference between, the browser normally caching the page and using the service worker to cache the page? So what's the kind of advantages?
Yeah. So the advantages of a service worker doing its caching is that it saves it all to disk cache, and you control when it expires, whereas normally the browser will determine, based on visits and usage, how it will clear its cache. So you have a little bit more sustained cache. The only time it clears the cache is when disk becomes a problem. So obviously on desktop, probably not going to hit that limit of the browser, whereas on mobile, that's where it starts to just maybe delete bits of cache as it needs to. You also can't you can't disk cache the initial HTTP request for the page, but you can cache its resources. And that's the real benefit, is the page caching, because you can pre-cache as well. Because you can just make AJAX calls, your service worker will pick up the URL, so you can be on a news page, for example, and load up the next article in the background. So when they hit that link, it's there instantly, and it has the app kind of response.
Thanks, first of all, for the great insight into speed and performance. I was wondering if you could talk more about the concept of offline, and is it possible to take an Umbraco website and make it offline using service workers? Is it possible to cache to that level?
Yeah, definitely. So we actually have a site at the moment. It's running a headless solution, and it caches all its resources. And we use a lot of stale while revalidate strategies, because although the content needs to be updated, they want a faster response over bang up to date. They can deal with having, maybe someone coming not seeing the instant because they're seeing like the older version, because most of it is new content. It's not really updated content. And then we make, for certain pages, like a listing page, we just do different strategies. So we go network first, and then if the network isn't there, we just load the cached version, so they're not seeing an offline page. That's the other thing as well. If you've got a network-only strategy, you can actually have an offline page and return that instead of what you should do, and not cache the result. So it means that you will never get the dinosaur if it's all been done correctly and well. So yeah. Cool. That's me then. Now you're old and here as well.